While we think of Jeeps as being the quintessential American vehicle, the reality is that countries around the world have been producing their own versions of the Jeep since shortly after World War II. Mitsubishi built Jeeps in Japan under license from Willys Corporation USA from 1953 through 1998. The Mitsubishi J3 Jeep was introduced to the Japanese market in July 1953. The name wasn't derived from the Willys CJ3 Jeep, but rather denoted that it was the third Mitsubishi Jeep produced. 53 J1s, which were CJ3As with 6-volt electrical systems, had been built for the Japanese Regional Forest Office, and around 500 J2s with 12-volt systems were built for the National Safety Forces. The Mitsubishi J3 was based on the CJ3B body style and were marketed as a rival to the Land Cruiser and the then new Nissan Patrol. The original J3 was a basic doorless and roofless vehicle with 80-inch, 203-centimeter wheelbase, with steering on the left despite Japan having left-side traffic. While the Mitsubishi J3 had specs almost identical to the Willys CJ3B, it does have a few minor detail differences. These include windshield vent, steel hood blocks, rear view mirrors, swing-out turn signals, larger gas cap, rear mount spare, and gauge panel on the dash. It is interesting to note that much of Mitsubishi's Japanese language advertising from the period was very colorful and filled with lively illustrations. The first right-hand drive versions did not appear until nearly 8 years later with the introduction of the J3R and the J11R. This made them more competitive in exporting, since much of their potential export market in Southeast Asia and Australia also used the left side of the road. The original J3 was equipped with the 2.2-liter F-head Hurricane inline four-cylinder, originally producing 69 horsepower at 4,000 RPM. The Hurricane engine was introduced in the CJ3B in 1953 and was based on the earlier Go Devil engine, which was updated with the F-head to become the F134. To get more power from the engine, the induction system was changed from the Go Devil side valve configuration to an inlet over exhaust configuration, or F-head. This allowed the valves to be larger and the combustion chamber to be smaller, improving flow and increasing the compression ratio. There is a lot of confusion about the name of the F-head engine. The F represents the valve configuration, where one set of valves is in the head and one is in the block. The F in F-head does not stand for flat, nor does it stand for Ford. Ford built some of their World War II GPWs with bolts with an F on the head, so the parts could be distinguished from the Willys MB. They used F head bolts to build the GPW, but this is not related to the F-head engine. Hurricane engine numbers on early Mitsubishi Jeeps have a 4J prefix, suggesting that they used engines supplied by Willys. Later, Mitsubishi-built Hurricane engines have numbers prefixed by JH4, Japanese Hurricane 4. The JH4 Hurricane engine was very successful and was in production from 1953 to 1974. A Mitsubishi-developed diesel variant of the Willys Hurricane was introduced in 1958 called the KE31. The KE31 diesel was rated at 61 horsepower at 3,600 RPM with 97 pound-foot of torque, clearly designed to fit easily in place of the Hurricane engine. In 1955, the slightly longer wheelbase J10, which could seat 6, was introduced, and in 1956 the J11 appeared, a two-door delivery wagon with a full metal body. Mitsubishi introduced the model J4 military Jeep in 1953, powered by the JH4 2.2-liter Hurricane engine. The first J4s were left-hand drive, as Mitsubishi did not start building right-hand drive Jeeps until 1961. Over 8,000 J4s were built before being replaced with a diesel-powered J4A in 1965. There were several visible minor differences between this Jeep and the Willys, including headlight guards, blackout front marker lights, dual rear view mirrors, vented two-piece windshield, and tool indents below the passenger door. The J4, like the Willys, had a 12-volt electrical system. In 1959, the J4C ambulance appeared with lifting shackles front and rear, a 24-volt electrical system, and electric wipers added to the basic J4. The extended headroom canvas top had a doghouse added at the back to enclose a stretcher. The J4C was used by the U.S. Army in Vietnam. The J4s were replaced starting in 1968 by the J54A, which had essentially the same body, but with a 2.7-liter 4DR5 diesel engine. By the time of the introduction of the longer J20 in 1960, a six-seater like the J10, but with a differently configured, more permanent front windshield, as well as available metal doors, Mitsubishi had added small diagonal skirts to the leading edge of the Jeep's front fenders. This would be the last change to the sheet metal up front until the end of Mitsubishi Jeep production in 1998. There was a big stretch to 104 inches with the J30 and J40 series. It was the same chassis as the J3, but it was elongated between the gearbox mount and the forward rear spring support. The J30 models included a new hardtop 5-door vehicle that was beginning to look more like a modern-day SUV. The rear doors on the hardtop adopted the new barn door design, and all models, even the soft-top J20 and 40, got short doors in lieu of the tailgate. The longer wheelbase models got a triangular step bolted to the tub and to the fender that was larger than the triangular step that was welded to the tub on CJ3Bs and J3s. The diesel version of the Jeep was tested by the U.S. Army in 1966. The abstract of their report reads as follows. The JC3 quarter-ton diesel engine Jeep, manufactured in Japan by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries Limited under license from Kaiser Jeep Corporation, was evaluated for its general performance, handling, and endurance over varied terrain, including pavement, secondary roads, cross-country, and snow. The overall performance of the vehicle compared favorably with the American version of the Jeep. The diesel engine gave it better economy, although it was more sluggish and the engine noise was somewhat objectionable on longer duration runs. No significant maintenance problems were encountered. There were 19 Mitsubishi Jeep variations produced in the 1960s, varying by short, medium, and long wheelbase, but having essentially the same engines and running gear. This leaves one to wonder if they were unsure of their market and seeking their niche. The 1960s had been marked by a proliferation of Jeep models and variants. The 1970s saw more focus on gradually narrowing and improving the Jeep line. By decade's end, there were only 9 Jeep variants manufactured alongside the Pajero that had started production in 1979. The J54A that was being used by the Japanese Self-Defense Force was replaced by the J24A, known as the Type 73 truck, beginning in 1973. The 88-inch wheelbase J24A with a 4DR5 diesel engine installed became the standard military model throughout the rest of the decade. The J24As had military lighting equipment, brackets for radio antennas, and mounts for shovels and axes installed. More seats were added to the A and A2 models so that they could carry 5 passengers versus 2 in the J4. Slightly larger engines were added in the 1970s. The J54 and military J54A used a 2.7-liter diesel engine. The J56 had a 2.4 gasoline engine, and the J57 a 2.6 gasoline engine. The J3 model was phased out in 1973, and the KE47 and KE31 engine production ended a year later. J50 gasoline models were introduced in 1973, but when the stock of KE47 engines were used up, the vehicles were switched to the new 4G53 Astron engine and became the J56. The J50 series had the J3 chassis' shorter 80-inch wheelbase, but with very little change to the tub. The series kept the long window hinges and fold-down tailgate, but adopted the valance front fenders and the extra vents from the J20 series, along with the J20's rectangular lamp clusters and mirrors on the fenders and the jerry can and spare tire layout. The short wheelbase J20 series was also redesigned in 1974 with the 88-inch wheelbase and designated the J22, but it only lasted a year and was replaced in 1975 by the J26 with the 4G53 Astron engine. The 104-inch wheelbase variants were seeing declining sales, probably due to the introduction of competing models from other manufacturers, and the line was cut to just one 5-door SUV style and one soft-top truck, with the J30 morphing into the J38 with the gasoline 4G53 engine and the J44 with the 4DR5 diesel. Compared to the somewhat confusing array of new models and variations of the 60s and 70s, the 1980s saw model numbers change mostly to reflect engine updates. The long wheelbase models in the J30 line were discontinued in 1982, with the J40 line ceasing soon after in 1984. The only civilian models available now was the J50. The J58 morphed into the J59 in 1981, but kept the KG52 engine. The J57 also appeared in 1981 with the 4G54 2-liter engine. The J54 was upgraded to the new direct-injection turbocharged 4DR6 diesel engine, steel wheels, and tubeless radial tires, and was renamed the J53. The J24 military Jeep also got the beefier 4DR6 engine and some minor upgrades and became the J23. The J23 and J53 were upgraded one last time in 1995 with the 4DR5 intercooled engine, a hardy 2.7-liter turbo diesel inline-4. Mitsubishi Jeep story had begun in 1953 with the J3 and was ending in 1998 with the J53, a short wheelbase, soft-top model with the same basic dimensions and configuration as the J3 as the only civilian Jeep in production. It seems the Mitsubishi Jeep had come full circle.